Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Taher Khalid. I'm originally from New York City and presently living in Sharjah, United Emirates. And I'm working for Sharjah Television, producing English programs. I've been a Muslim for about 27 years now, and I accepted Islam in 1981. Before that time, I was, as you would say, an average American living the common life that most American young men live, and not much different, not better, not worse necessarily. And of course, a lot of times people want to hear about your sins, but we as Muslims, we're not supposed to speak about our sins publicly. And so we don't want to talk too much about that, but we need to know, what is it that people consider to be a red-blooded American? What is the lifestyle? And of course, most people, they base their success on the things that they achieve materially, meaning that you get a good education, which generally means through college or university or some particular skilled training program, that you get a good job or you do some particular business that allows you to take care of yourself and to live a comfortable lifestyle. Alhamdulillah, by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I had all of those things, and I lived a very comfortable lifestyle in America as a non-Muslim. People always ask me, was your life before? And I said, the thing that I think that was difficult for us was that the gratification that we lacked in our life, because our existence was based on materialism. What we identified as success in life was based on what you achieve materially. And of course, everyone is not necessarily like that. But of course, I grew up in a very fast-paced environment, fast-paced city. And most of us grew up to be very competitive and also always looking for some material benefit in our life. And that's generally what people look for as an achievement, or what they consider to be an achievement in your life, what you achieved materially and what things you did in that particular plane. Unfortunately, there are many people out there today who are still caught up in that syndrome. And by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I was guided, and I'm, by His mercy, guided to Islam. People ask me, well, why did you accept Islam? And I said, well, the reason that I accepted Islam was I was looking for the truth. I became tired of just materialism. I thought that just the material existence there was much more to it, but I didn't know what it was. Just the things that people do on a normal basis, to me, it lost its gratification. Things that we were doing all our life, whether we're playing sports or we had girlfriends, or common things that all of us do or did, were not satisfying to me. So I decided that I wanted to go and search for the truth and find the truth, whatever that truth was. And I also realized that I needed some spiritual guidance in my life. I didn't know what that was either. And about 3-4 years before I began to pursue this, what we call the spiritual path, because I still meet a lot of people who say they're on a spiritual path, my best friend was killed. And that also made me wonder about what was happening in the next life, what was his condition, what I should be doing. But surely I was going to die. I didn't know anything about what death really was, the real answers to what death is and what the spiritual existence is. So I began to travel on that path, what we call the spiritual path, looking for some spirituality in my life, which I didn't know what that was. I read a lot of books which were related to Eastern philosophy and religions, trying to gain some understanding of a spiritual existence. I was raised basically as a Christian, but I left Christianity basic when I was 16 years old. I didn't find it was what I needed at that time. It wasn't satisfying a lot of things that I was looking for, and I decided I wasn't no longer going to be a Christian. So I wasn't practicing. I didn't consider myself a practicing Christian from the time that I was 16, even though my family is a very strong Christian family till today. From that time until I accepted Islam, which is about another 16 years later, I wasn't really practicing any religion. I believed in God, and I believed that there was one God and one God only, but I wasn't practicing any particular religion. When I began my search, looking for the truth and seeking the spiritual balance in my life. What motivated me to pursue Islam is not like with most people. I wasn't pursuing Islam per se. I did a job and I had quite a bit of money, And I decided, at that time I had been reading, I decided that, again, I thought I would satisfy myself by material gain. I went out and decided I was going to buy a new car. Even though my car was only 2 years old, I went to men's shops. I used to like fine clothes. I went to some men's shops and bought clothing. And when I bought the clothing and when I ordered the car, I knew that this wasn't really going to give me the satisfaction that I was looking for. And it's kind of like a voice said to me, you know, this is not going to make you happy. This is not really what you're looking for. So why are you doing this? So I went and at that time I was reading quite a bit about Indian mysticism. And I decided, I'm going to go to India. So I went and got my money back, the deposit from the car, and went and bought myself a ticket for India. And I traveled around in India for about 2 months, 2.5 months. And I went all over India. I saw the gurus. I went to the Himalayas. I did yoga, which I mean, it's not the first time I had done yoga. Did yoga and meditation in ashrams. And it was interesting. I enjoyed it, but I couldn't get with the Hinduism. You know, I argued with Hindus when they started talking about multiple gods. I'm telling them, there's only one God. What are you talking about? Then I was traveling in South India, in the hotel that I was staying in. There were several masjids around it. And one day I was going past the masjid, and I heard the call to prayer, and I told my friend, I said, listen, you know, I want to go in that masjid. He said, you want to go in the masjid? I said, yeah. He said, well, you have to make ablution. You have to wash yourself. I said, well, what is that? He said, see those brothers over there? They're preparing themselves. So he went and talked to the brothers, and the brothers showed me how to make ablution to prepare myself to pray. So I followed them, washed, and I got in the masjid, and I got in the prayer line with everybody else, and I kind of just looked out the corner of my eye to watch what people were doing like this, and to follow them. After I finished that prayer, I knew that this was what I was looking for. So when people ask me, had you studied about Islam? No. But when I finished that prayer, I knew that this was what I was looking for. It was clear in my mind. I used to pray all the time and ask Allah to guide me and make it very clear for me to see the truth, that I would know it, that nothing would be an obstruction. When I left America, I felt that I was going to find something that would change my life. The 2 points. I felt that I was going to find something that was going to change my life and that I would know it clearly when I saw it. For some reason, I had a very strong feeling about this. And I had made a pact, you know, that I was going to remain celibate and I was not going to be involved in any of the kinds of activities. I was going to be very straight, for lack of a better description, on this particular trip, and this trip searching for the truth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by His mercy and grace, decided that He would guide this dirty soul. And to date, I've met many people who were on the path or have been on that path. And alhamdulillah, many people that I know have accepted Islam. And again, that is a mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah allows us to travel on this path and understand many of the things that people are going through, and to be able to assist them to find clear guidance. Having myself been in darkness and now realizing the beauty of the light and encouraging other people, and it's trying to inspire other people to understand the difference between darkness and light, regardless of what they've been taught. People often ask me, well, what is the things that attracted you to Islam, or what is it that, you know, the Muslims did that, you know, influenced you one way or another? And I've had Muslim friends for most of my adult life, and many of those friends, they were doing things that I didn't do. I actually worked in a Muslim country before I accepted Islam, a few years before I accepted Islam. What I did appreciate about that country, when I was there, the people that I met were very friendly. We had very interesting interactive discussions about different topics. And I always liked to meet people from other countries and see their points of view and discuss things with them. I always felt that was very educational. I never forget one particular incident. People ask me about an incident. I came to the airport, and actually this was Libya. I was in Libya. And I was coming back to the States, and I came into the airport, and my suitcase broke. It actually burst. I had so much stuff and it was too heavy. So the policeman at the airport, he stopped me, said, just wait a minute. And I said, okay. He said he went and got some tape and took that bag himself and taped the bag up and said, okay, it's all right now, and put it on the conveyor. That was a simple thing, but that stuck with me to the day. This man's kindness as a police officer. I've never experienced this from a police officer. I don't think there are many police officers where I come from that would have done a similar thing. And it was a simple kindness, but it was something that this person showed me that made me appreciate the effort that he made to assist me. Muslims that I did meet in the Middle East prior to Islam, they were very receptive, and I went into people's houses and we had a lot of good conversation and good interaction. Of course, this is traditional in Muslim culture. I think this quality is a very important quality that the Muslims have. They're generally very hospitable, and specifically to foreigners and to guests. And I found this to be consistent wherever I've been in the world. Whether I could speak the language or not, whether it was in Africa or Asia or the Middle East, wherever I was with Muslims, I found this consistent after accepting Islam and before Islam. In America, I had different experiences because I didn't really know the Muslims per se. The people that I knew who were Muslims were not really practicing, so I couldn't judge Islam by many of their habits. And the Muslims who were practicing, I didn't know them closely before Islam. And one of the major problems that Muslims everywhere have, even today, is they don't know Islam enough to talk to other people about Islam, to invite them to Islam and ask them questions about it. And that's a major problem, because this is one of our major responsibilities, to invite people to Islam. Of course, the best thing and the best methodology of inviting people is by good conduct, righteous behavior, enjoining what is good and forbidding what is evil, meaning myself doing what is right and forbidding myself from doing what is evil, and being kind to all people, regardless of who they may be. And having the true concern that people, if Allah decides to guide them, that I can be a possible means of guidance to righteousness for people. And what more noble act can a person do? So I'm encouraging the Muslims out there who might be looking at this program, that some people say, oh, well, you know, I don't know very much about Islam and I don't want to misguide anybody. Says, okay, fine, you don't know anything about Islam? Then first thing you need to do is you need to learn something about Islam. You need to sit down and study and learn something about Islam, number one. Number two, if you have some people out there who are non-Muslims, then find someone who knows something about Islam and take them to that person. This concern we should have for every human being.
Pearls of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Narrated Anas bin Malik, may Allah be pleased with him. The Prophet, may peace be upon him, said, if any Muslim plants any plant and a human being or an animal eats of it, he will be rewarded as if he had given that much in charity. Sahih al-Bukhari, Volume 8, Book of Good Manners, Hadith number 6012.
Where truth is hidden and misleading quotations create confusion. Where truth is hidden, lack of knowledge and wisdom cause upheaval and commotion. Where truth is hidden, manipulated scriptures and twisted facts emerge. This very hidden truth creates false propaganda, mayhem, chaos, disorder, and turmoil in our lives and the world order. But is there anyone with courage and wisdom? What is the truth, and who has the courage to expose it? Because it's your right to know the truth.
Watch truth prevail and lies perish in Truth Exposed by Dr. Zakir Naik every Friday to Wednesday at 9 p.m. Saudi Arabia and 10 p.m. UAE on Peace TV. A missile to show the right path.
If you believe that what you believe is true, that Islam is the only true religion,
Hussein Yi.
then it is your duty and my duty to prove to the people that this is the true religion.
A missile to spread the message of Allah.
He's not the father of anything. He's not the son of anything. He's not like anything.
Yusuf Estes.
And he is unique.
A missile to spread Islam in the world.
Islam is spreading. And Islam is spreading fast.
Abdur Rahim Green,
It is the fastest growing religion in the world.
a missile to bring peace in the world.
You are not one of us if those who do not have to show respect to the elders and do not show love to the young one.
Islam spread almost from one end of the known world to the other.
Islam is peace, man. Islam is peace.
Feel the impact in Peace Missile. Next on Peace TV.
You know, people always ask me, well, once you accepted Islam, did you face any particular problems with your family or your friends? What happened to you? Your life, of course, changed, but how did it affect you? With my family now, so even though my family is a very strong Christian family, I have a few Christian ministers in my family, and my mother actually teaches Sunday school actually till today. My life was, I was away from home. I was a mature adult, and this was my choice. And of course, people generally respect whatever your choices may be. The biggest problem for me was that people were not ready to accept Islam. When I first came back to the States after accepting Islam from being away for about 6 months, I went to my friends and my family and I talked to them all about Islam. And of course, my approach was very strong at that time because I had come from what I felt a position of ignorance and darkness to the position of light. I realized that, I was in the hellfire. And by the grace and mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I had a chance now to go to paradise. And that my friends were in the same boat, and my family members also, whatever belief system they were following was an incorrect belief. And most of my friends weren't really following anything, just following their desires. So I went to them one by one. But people, I was very intense. I didn't realize it too much later. And they didn't really know how to take me. And the reason why I was intense was because I was very much afraid for them and worried and concerned about them. And I was thankful that Allah had unveiled Islam to me and let me see Islam in a different perspective than I may have understood it to be previously. So, but in terms of particular obstacles, I didn't face any obstacles particularly. In the workplace, I made adjustments in the workplace to make my prayers. I always made my prayers on Fridays. Actually, when I accepted Islam, I used to take Fridays off without pay. I thought that Friday was our holy day, so we'd go to the masjid and pray and take the day off. When I found out later on, I had changed that. For my career, I took off half a day. So 12 o'clock was finishing time for me. From the rest of the time, which would be 12 to 4, I just took the loss. People used to ask me, says, how can you do that, man? How can you do without a half day pay? I says, man, what I'm doing on Friday is much more important to me than the pay. And it didn't, of course, the benefit that I got from praying, going to Friday prayers, was much greater than I've never, ever felt sorry for any time that I've taken off to go to pray on Friday in relationship, whatever monetary sacrifice there may have been. It wasn't really a sacrifice because all the money that we're getting is by Allah's permission anyway. And it was, I was thankful to Allah that He allowed me to realize that. Many people think, oh, well, if I take this time off, I'm going to lose, so much money in my business. So they don't pray. They don't go to the masjid on Friday. Or many people don't pray in the masjid at all. They stay in their businesses because they feel that, well, if I take time away from my business, I'm going to lose money. And they don't realize Allah's the one who facilitated the money anyway. And whatever Allah has facilitated, inshallah, that you'll get that. Whatever Allah has written for you, if He doesn't cut that from your life, then you're going to get it. And you're not going to get more than what He's written, whether it's millions or whether it's this few dirhams or a few dollars. So, alhamdulillah, the only inconveniences that I faced was, of course, is what most people have faced in being in a non-Muslim society where people don't understand Islam. They don't know necessarily who you are, what you're about. And that, on the other side, allowed us to talk to them and explain. And I dressed like, a lot of people know, I dressed like this in America. I didn't start just dressing like this when I moved to the Middle East. When I came from India and moved to the United States, back to the States, I started dressing this way. And of course, people in 1981, a lot of people thought that was strange, but it opened the door for me to talk to a lot of people about Islam. I found more people curious then I found negative experiences. And even some of the negative experiences, people were doing these things out of ignorance, out of stereotypes of things that they didn't really understand. And when you didn't respond negatively to them and you began to, if you had an opportunity to begin to explain to them, many times people says, well, I didn't really know it was like this. I thought it was, the Muslims were like so and so and so. They said, no, this is not the case at all. So the change in lifestyle for me opened up a door of opportunity for explaining to people what Islam is, and a very important thing, what a lot of people don't realize is what Islam is not. But I think there were a few things, of course, that were major, and those things which most people find which are major. One of the biggest things, of course, was praying 5 times a day, number one, and then not just 5 times a day, but Fajr, praying at 4:30 in the morning as an example. It wasn't difficult for me. I look forward to it. I had developed it as part of my routine when I was in Asia, but it was very different. It was something very different in relationship to my lifestyle. Praying 5 times a day, every day. I used to try to pray Fajr in the morning and Isha, the first prayer in the morning and the last prayer at night in the masjid. During the day, most of the time I would be at work. So I used to try to at least secure that I prayed those 2 prayers in the masjid. So this was something completely different for me. I was not frequent in any religious practice or any kind of religious establishment. I didn't go to any religious establishment. I believed in one God only, but I wasn't, of course, participating in any organized religion. So this was very, very different for me. I would say probably the second thing was no girlfriends. Okay, all of my adult life, most of my adult life, I had a girlfriend. There was no girlfriends. I didn't find it difficult. I was never challenged by that. Actually, before I accepted Islam, I doubted that I was going to get married. After accepting Islam and I began to understand the importance of getting married, I decided that, okay, that I need to get married. So I decided that at some point in time, like 3 years later, 3 years after accepting Islam, okay, it's time for me to get married, and I got married. So that was something that was different. My friends left me. I didn't really leave my friends. What happened was when I accepted Islam, I went to my friends and I talked to them about Islam. I maintained contact with them, but if I didn't call them, they didn't call me. The things that I used to do, the places that I used to go, I stopped doing that. And I used to try to spend my time, as much time as I could, in the masjid and with the brothers who were trying to practice Islam. So the things that I used to do, I kind of broke away from a lot of those things. Not necessarily that I was breaking away from the people, but I had no interest in it. And my friends basically went their own way. Not that we had any differences of opinion, but I guess they saw that my life was different and I was not going to be about what they were about. So they decided, well, I guess we're going in different paths. And they didn't bother me with it. I invited them all to Islam. I tried to stay in touch with them as best I could. But people went in different directions. And actually, my life changed quite a bit. I traveled outside of the States quite a bit. I got involved in Islamic work in America and outside of America. I traveled throughout America and throughout the world, just involving myself in Islamic work. So my life changed tremendously from the lifestyle that I had previously. And it was much richer on every level. The experiences that I had with people were distinctly different than any of the experiences that I had previously. I had now a much bigger family. I was welcomed as a Muslim in people's homes and as a family member. We didn't even speak the same language, as an example, but the fraternity and brotherhood that I experienced and the love that I've experienced as a Muslim from people who I had never known before was something that was just awesome. And it's still mind-boggling for anyone who's had this experience. It's one of the greatest experiences I think that a person can have, is to meet people on the first time and for them to treat you as though they've known you for all your life.